So welcome everyone to this session. First of all, I want to thank the organization because events like this and conferences like this in Europe is very, very important for the whole ecosystem. So you have Laval Virtual, you have a lot of events in London, but I really feel this is an event that adds value for the whole industry, not only VR, but also AR and MR. So very happy to be here. I'm going to use the 15 minutes as good as possible. I have a lot of topics to cover because basically I'm very active in the industry, like was mentioned before, doing a lot of community work and research work, but my passion actually is to kickstart a software product, a distribution platform for VR based upon WebVR. So this is a bit an overview of the agenda, but let's dive immediately into it. So I think this is the research that got LucidWeb on the map in February. So my entrepreneurial journey started a year ago when I was traveling to VR LA and I met Marco Demiras and Tipatat from the VR Fund. They had published an international landscape highlighting the most important movers and shakers in the VR industry, and they asked me and my company to research the European landscape. So what I've done is I've set up calls and meetings with local VR ambassadors. So a lot of countries had already meetups focused on VR and WebVR, and I interviewed them, and with them we highlighted 300 companies, and the VR Fund selected 116 companies. So you see, this is the quite known template of the VR Fund. So it starts with the bottom layer, which is infrastructure companies. The middle is tools and platforms. And on top, you have the applications focused on certain verticals. Based upon this research, one of the key insights was that 26 of the companies selected were UK-based, but 19 were based in France. A lot of activity, of course, still in the games industry. For example, with important companies like CCP Games and Endreams. Then again, there's huge competition coming from the middle layer, the 3D tools with players like Visor, Improbable, us, LucidWeb, ThinkLink, and then on the bottom, Input with very important companies like MindMaze, who raised 100 million in one round. So they're a Swiss-based company to keep an eye on. So this was February. In the meantime, we've done a lot of extra research. So in 2 weeks, or maybe 3 weeks, we're going to launch the second version of this landscape. Of course, a lot of new companies have emerged, and also a lot of investments and exits have happened the last couple of months. The investment analysis, on the other hand, will be done by Tech.eu. Actually, I'm co-founder of Tech.eu. Tech.eu is run by Robin Wouters, who is a very known tech reporter here in Europe. They do regularly quarterly analysis on funding and exits over the whole European industry, but also sometimes they focus on IoT or finance or fintech. So now they're going to dedicate one report on the state of the European VR industry. Will be published for €250 in a couple of weeks. This is now called European VR industry. By next year, will be called XR. Like everyone knows, VR, AR, MR, it's all going into one pot, and it's called XR. Like mentioned, I'm very active in the community, also very fond about the female entrepreneurship. So I've co-founded Women in XR Europe. A bit sad that there are no more women here in the room, but that's a normal case today. So the ratios has to become better. So the objective is to have one inclusive network of active women in the industry. So now we have more than 350 members. So we're very active on Facebook. If you look for Women in XR Europe, you're immediately on our Facebook page. Like I said, I'm very good friends with the Venture Reality Fund. They asked me as well to promote the Women in XR funding initiative. So really setting up a network of corporates and investment funds like Norwest Ventures to provide easy access to women, not only for network, but also for capital. And then quickly, just a little bit of promotion, because I'm also organizing the Oscars in VR. It's an event that will happen at the end of December in Brussels. It's going to be focused mostly on content, but also there's a strong engineering element to the conference. So there's it's not only for content in VR, it's also 3D and scientific papers validated by the IEEE. Quickly. So, like I mentioned, my passion and my strongest occupation today is to launch a publishing platform for device-agnostic VR experiences. It's a mouthful, but it's just to highlight the biggest problem there is in the industry today. So, as a publisher today, you're faced with a very fragmented distribution landscape in VR. This results in a very low return on investment if you look at the native application approach. A lot of publishers today are hesitating, should we continue to invest in producing high-quality VR content? The consumer, on the other hand, is faced with relatively expensive HMDs, quite inconvenient, complicated interfaces. In general, there's a low willingness to buy a VR headset just because they feel that there's not enough content. This is quite known in the industry as a chicken and the egg, a dilemma of content. So this is not new. Let's have a look at this problem from a publisher's point of view. So for example, Arte is one of the companies we're talking to. They promote their VR application, and you see at the bottom, it's really small, but you see that they distribute their content via an Android app, an iOS app, a Gear VR app, and a Daydream app. So as a consumer, you have 4 different URLs. Nevertheless, if you have an Oculus or an HTC5, you can actually not check this content. From the audience point of view, for example, when you're interested in high-quality VR content, for example, from the New York Times, and as a company, we're always focused on the mobile-first use case. So people are on their mobile, they want to check content, what do they do? So I'm on my mobile, I want to check New York Times VR content. It's widely promoted. So my mobile browser on my Android phone, it will detect that I have to go to the Google Play Store. So then I have to download the app. So it takes some time to download the app. Then you have an overview of the content. Then you make a selection, and there are 2 options. You can either stream or download the content. But downloading actually is not an option because it's in small, but not enough free space on your phone. So you have to delete another app to be able to download it. So most people, of course, will stream it. If you choose to stream it, there are 2 options. The cardboard, which we call the VR mode, or the 360 journey, which we call the magic window. A lot of people will go for the magic window. So after 7 steps, you eventually can check the content in the magic window. Magic window is super important today. Why? Because it includes 2 ways to navigate the content. There's moving your phone around, and then, of course, the images will follow your movement, or you use touch in the screen to actually move around. So magic window will be very important throughout the rest of my presentation, as well as a VR mode. VR mode is cardboard. If you have a VR-compatible phone, you can go to your Samsung Gear VR or a Daydream phone, a Daydream reader. Or if you're on a desktop and you have an Oculus or HTC connected, the VR mode will mean that you stream immediately the images to those headsets. So what is very important in this user journey to the magic window is that aside from the cardboard, there's no VR mode option. You actually can't access the content in a Gear VR or a Daydream. Then again, I have to be honest, some of the content will be distributed via their partners, so you can, in some cases, discover the content, but it's not a real democratized access to the content. So what we're building is a publishing platform to, from the one side, simplify the go-to-market for the publisher and also improve the return on investment. On the other hand, for the end user, for the audience, you promise a convenient access. It's device agnostic, and you can easily shift to the VR mode. So our company is all about democratizing VR discovery. So whatever mobile, desktop, or headset you have at hand, you have access to the same content. What it basically means is that we provide an out-of-the-box tool to manage, update, and analyze the content. It's immediate publication, and you only have to communicate one URL. for the content, for the consumer, there's more content. You have direct access. You don't have to download or store or remove other apps on your phone. You always have direct access via the Magic Window, and you can easily shift to the VR mode if you have a headset available. So with our platform, we're disrupting the current VR distribution market, but also creating a new generation of VR experiences that are instantly accessible cross-platform. If this is still too abstract, which I can imagine, how does it work for the audience? Just a simple example. You're on, again, we start from the mobile use case. So you're on your mobile, you're in a browser, so it's not an app that you see, it's the mobile side of FC Barcelona. There's a VR goggles icon. If you press on it, on the VR goggles icon, immediately your phone goes, the screen goes into a horizontal full screen mode, and you immediately come into the Magic Window, which means, again, two ways of navigating. You can move around or you can use touch. Most people will continue the journey in the Magic Window mode, which is perfectly possible. But of course, the next step will be that the consumer is interested in the more immersive view, and again, select the VR goggles icon. And here the browser is a very smart browser. It will detect where you are. If you are on a non-VR compatible phone, it will indicate, put your phone into the cardboard. If you are on a VR compatible phone, it will say, put your phone into the Samsung Gear VR or in the Daydream. If you're on a desktop, it's easy. It will immediately send the images to your Oculus or your HTC Vive. So basically, with our platform, from the mobile browser to the Magic Window, it's one step. Then we add value by giving the option to continue the journey in the Magic Window mode, or to trigger the end user to go into the VR mode. So one URL, you immediately are available across 7 platforms. How does it work for the publisher? Of course, a lot of people here in the room will say, this is WebVR, this is the basis of WebVR. So that's why also, of course, our platform is powered by the WebVR technology. When I started my entrepreneurial journey, WebVR, like a year and a half ago, WebVR was not widely discussed. But today, every week, there is another vendor, another software player who confirms their support. Yesterday, it was very important. I also have Brandon Jones confirmed that also Apple has joined the WebVR community. So the developer support is growing fast, but also the software players, but also the phone makers see the opportunity. So by the end of the year, 11 phones have confirmed to become VR compatible, which means you have one user journey from the phone to the headset. And I'm sure other phone makers will pop up and confirm the same before the end of the year. So this is the screenshot of Brandon Jones yesterday on Twitter. I think it's very important because it's an important selling point if you're talking to media companies. They all have an iPhone in front of them. If you can't show your capabilities on an iPhone, then you can't sell your platform. So this is, for me personally, the best news of the year. Example from a publisher side. So like I mentioned, I started my entrepreneurial journey by last year, and the first thing I did was collect 2 pieces of VR content of the Belgian broadcaster. I worked with a New York-based agency to develop an app. It's called EVU in New York, and they were responsible for rolling it out from Android to iOS to Samsung Gear. They never managed to roll it out to another platform than Android. They had a lot of problems. So I'm very happy that today, with my company, we've rolled out the same experience, the same 2 experiences in WebVR. So the 2 experiences who last year were only available on Android are now available on desktop, iOS, Daydream, the Gear VR, the HTC Vive, and the Oculus Rift. If you want to have a look at the experience, take a picture of the URL, use the device that you have in front of you, and you can check the experience on your device. This is not available on our website because it's actually a demo that we're doing with the Belgian broadcaster, and it's only for beta testers or private public. So why is it very important for the publisher? It's a very low threshold tool, very short time to market. We don't have to develop weeks for an app that is cross-platform available. It's a number of days. As a publisher, you can communicate one URL And of course, it's a very interesting way to stay relevant and future-proof. I'm just going to take the rest of my time to show a bit, we have some videos of our demo. So again, take a picture if you want to test it on your own device. This is a demo of the video of the Samsung Gear VR. So you're on a Samsung phone, you go to the Samsung browser, you type in the URL. So you immediately are in a magic window mode. You just have to confirm. Immediately you can use touch or your phone. And then Fabien is my co-founder. He pressed on the VR goggles icon. You put it into the Samsung Gear VR. We cannot see, we didn't film what he sees, but basically you're immediately not in the Oculus Home, but you're in the Samsung internet browser. You have to look down, you immediately see the experience, you have to look down at the VR goggles icon, actually gaze, and then the experience starts. Oops. It also works on the iPad. Again, you go to the same URL. Immediately in the magic window mode. Of course, here we cannot speak about the VR mode because you can't put your iPad in a headset. That doesn't exist. The example of the HTC Vive. So again, you're on a desktop, you go to the same URL, with your mouse you indicate the VR goggles icon. Immediately, like in a second, the experiences are available in the HTC Vive. To conclude, just a bit of the use cases. So if mobile first is important for the brand, then we're talking about immersive identity. So via our platform, brands give access to a new immersive identity that is available and accessible via their site, or brands can use it as a promotional tool. On the other hand, a lot of standalone experiences are also interesting. We receive requests, for example, from hospitals where they want to use several pieces of video for educational use cases, or we also have workflow visualization. On the level of B2B2C, we're talking to a lot of news channels, large VR studios, sport teams, automotive, tourism, and VR for good. I'm going to skip this. So yes, that was it for me. Thank you for your attention. If you have questions, this is my Twitter, Linus, or you can email me. And I'm also available for the rest of the day. Thank you.